In this video, we're going to discuss the federal Teach Grant. So the Teach Grant provides up to $4,000 a year in free money to undergraduate or graduate students attending college in the U.S. who plan to become teachers after they finish school and are willing to complete a service requirement. So the service requirement has multiple parts. You have to be willing to teach full-time for 4 out of the 8 years after leaving school as a highly qualified teacher, which basically means a highly qualified teacher means you have a bachelor's degree and that you're also certified or licensed in the state in which you happen to be a teacher. So like if you're a science teacher and there are certain basic minimum requirements, you have to pass a test to be certified that you've complied with all that. And you're teaching at a low-income school or educational agency in a high-need field. So high-need field, this could change from year to year, what's a high-need field, but currently bilingual education, math, science, foreign languages, special ed, if you're a reading specialist, all of those things are high-need field. So if you meet all these service requirements, you could be eligible to get this federal Teach Grant, and then when you graduate, you meet these service requirements. It's basically a great way to fund your education. Now, if for some reason you can't meet the service requirements, for example, you can't teach for 4 out of the 8 years, something happens, you can actually suspend the service requirement under certain circumstances. So, for example, if you enroll in another Teach Grant eligible program, for example, if you got your bachelor's degree and then started teaching and then you said, hey, I want to go back and get a master's in education, and if that master's in education is in a Teach Grant eligible program, then that will suspend your service requirement while you're doing that Teach Grant eligible program. And bear in mind, I said eligible program because not all schools do the Teach Grant program, so you should check with the financial aid office. Also, if you have a qualifying reason under the Family and Medical Leave Act situation, in that case you can get your service requirements suspended. Or if you're called to military service for more than 30 days, that also qualifies for a suspension. And if you are in the military, you're called to military for more than 3 years, in that case you might even be able to get your service requirement discharged or done away with altogether. So you should definitely check into that. Now, if for some reason things change, you say, I don't want to be a teacher, after you've graduated and you already took the Teach Grant money, but you don't fulfill the service requirement, then what happens is that money that you receive just becomes an unsubsidized loan, just treated like a regular federal unsubsidized loan. So that means, let's just say, for example, that you had taken, during your undergraduate years, you took $8,000 in Teach Grant funds. And so you got that money, it was applied toward your education, and you thought, hey, I'll never have to pay this back. I'm going to become a teacher and meet the requirements. But then you decide, hey, you know what, I want to be an engineer or so forth after a year or two of teaching. Since you didn't meet the requirements, now this $8,000 is an unsubsidized loan. And they go back, basically the government goes back to the day that you received that $8,000 initially, when you were initially given that grant, and then they calculate the interest that you would have accrued on that loan. So you're going to be responsible. Otherwise, you'd basically be getting interest-free loan during that time, right? And everybody would say, "Hey, I want to be a teacher," and just take the money and then say they changed their mind. So you get charged the $8,000 you have to repay, and then you'd also have to repay any interest that had accrued since that time. Now, as I mentioned, not all schools participate in the Teach Grant program. So you want to check with your school's financial aid office just to make sure they participate.